Good morning, folks, and welcome to another edition of Morning Coffee and a Thought. No one can deny that these last 2 years have been anything but rough, with all the economic anxiety, the social anxiety surrounding us, a lot of death, a lot of sickness. And I want to talk about that a little this morning. I want to maybe give us an encouraging word going into the future. Back in the book of Judges, from chapters 6 through to 8, there's an account of the nation of Israel going through a huge economic and social struggle. Their struggle was not caused by a pandemic. It had been caused by eastern tribes, predominantly the Midianites, coming westward and invading their land. They plundered the Jewish crops, some of the herds, the water supply, and this had gone on for a lengthy time, almost 7 years. This practice had happened. And the Jewish people were basically relegated to living off mountainsides and huts, trying to scrounge for whatever food that they could get at the time. And during this period, there's a scene that occurs in Judges chapter 6, in which a young man named Gideon from the tribe of Manasseh, his father's name was Josh, and he was threshing wheat, but he was doing it in a wine press. Now, normally you would thresh wheat in an elevated area, but he was trying to hide from these invading tribes, and so he was threshing wheat in a wine press. And while he's doing that, I'm sure he was reminiscing about the good old days of Israel, when they had peace and security, when they had economic prosperity. But those days had long gone. That was 7, 8 years ago. Now they were just barely hanging on. But as he's threshing this wheat, all of a sudden an angel from Yahweh appears to him and calls him a mighty warrior. And I'm sure Gideon must have thought that was a strange thing to say to him. He certainly was not a mighty warrior. Here he was in a wine press threshing wheat to try and hide from Midianite raiders. So Gideon talks to the angel, and in this conversation, the angel tells him to rise up and deliver his nation from these plunderers. But it was the one line that the angel said to him which struck me. As Gideon is kind of discussing back and forth how he's going to do this, the angel says to him, "Just go in the strength you have." And I thought that was a wonderful statement. And so Gideon does. He begins by taking small steps. He ends up tearing down some foreign god altars that had been constructed. But later that grows, and he gets an army from his tribe, an army of about 10,000 men. Now that army is soon whittled down to about 300 men. And they go and attack a force much larger than theirs in the valley of Jezreel. The Midianites had a huge horde of warriors and people with them. But Gideon and his 300 men attacked them in the wee hours of the morning with just trumpets and glass jars, and scare the Midianite army and those allied with them out of the area, and they cross back going eastward across the Jordan. And so Gideon delivers his people from this huge plundering Midianite raiders. But I go back to what the angel said to him, and that was, "Go in the strength you have." Now Gideon did not bring Israel back to what it was a few chapters back in his history. But he did move them on from the chapter that they were in, a chapter of discouragement, despondency, social anxiety, economic anxiety, And he did it simply by obedience and using what was available to him, the opportunities given him. And that's what I want to talk to us today about. None of us, any one person, can bring us to a new chapter in our world, but all of us together can go in the strength that we have and do what we can, each one of us, to try and move our world, our society, our nation, our community on to the next chapter. And one thing we have to remember is our world, our community may not ever look like it did a few chapters ago. That may never occur. But we certainly don't have to stay in the same situation or the same chapter that we're in today. And all it does is it takes each one of us to go in the strength that we have, to do what we can do to help our community and our society move on to at least a better chapter than what we're in right now. COVID will not last forever. I was thinking that when the angel said that to Gideon, the angel realized what the future was going to be, that Gideon would in fact be a mighty warrior and would deliver his country from the sort of pandemic that they were in. And we won't be in this chapter forever. We're in a transition period, but all of us can help in that transition. And so I just want to take time this morning to encourage each and every one of you. Go in the strength that you have. Do what you can do. We won't be in this chapter forever. We'll move on to the next. It may not look like the past, but it'll be much better than what we have right now. So take courage, have courage, go in the strength you have, do what you can do, and let's make our community and our world a better place going forward. Have a good morning coffee, have a good day, and we'll talk to you next week.